Let's Talk Tunnelling is produced by XRJV and proudly sponsored by DC Adams Group, Why Safety Matters. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Tunnelling. Today's guest is Vic Price. How are you, Vic?
I'm good, mate. Yourself? How are you all doing down under?
Yeah, we're good here. Hey, I just wanted to introduce yourself, if you don't mind, or I'll introduce. You're a director of Park Tunnelling Consultancy based in the UK. So I appreciate you coming on all the way from London. So you're a proactive tunnel manager with over 49 years experience in tunnelling, which includes gaining experience in a range of tunnelling techniques and methods. Hand tunnelling, NATM, conventional drill and blast, shaft sinking, road header and shotcrete tunnels, TBMs, hard rock, EPB, slurry and pipe jacking. Now, I just want to say firstly, thank you very much for coming on Let's Talk Tunnelling. To know that people like yourself are still in the industry with your knowledge, really appreciate it. So thank you. If you don't mind, Vic, saying a little bit more about yourself, please.
Yeah, like I said there, I started in 1969 and I'm still going strong, 2020. I got my own little consultancy set up. I work now for a company called Balfour Beatty. I look after the SDL tunnels and 3 TBMs. Yeah, I'm a works manager for them now. So it's quite an interesting job. It's down at the Hinkley Point Nuclear Power Station. Probably a £20 billion project overall. Yes, through the years it's been an interesting journey. Met a lot of good people. Starting at the beginning was pretty harsh. Baptism of fire, if you like. Yeah. I had moved up to Liverpool with a wife and a young baby. Kept going to the site every day looking for a job. Probably 7 weeks. Walked all over Liverpool, Birkenhead. No transport, no money in the pocket. Eventually one Saturday I arrived at the workplace, as I usually did, and the guy said, start on Sunday night. So, couldn't believe it. Started up on the Sunday night. It was 12-hour shifts, so Sunday, the first 2 hours was the double time. He started at 10 o'clock, works through till 8 o'clock in the morning. So I gave you 12 hours for the Sunday. We went down drilling and firing. We had a Maltese superintendent. We had a Polish shift boss and 3 Polish miners. And little Paddy stuck in the middle of them all. We were hand drilling. I had an idea where the holes went. There was no face markings done. So I was doing the spannering for the air leg machines. Water was roaring in. We had all these fishermen's capes on and silence boots. And then when we fired, we'd be mucking an Anko slingshot. And here was this thing I'd never seen in my life before. I'm running after the air, bagging the air hose, so he didn't track over the top of it, snorting like a pig and trying to kill me. And people were shouting. Anyway, I worked my way through it. And halfway through the shift, I remember I was dying of thirst and with no water to drink. There was 3 12-inch pipes coming up through the pilot tunnel. I put my hand on them with a full bore of water. They were cold. I thought, oh, that'll do. Took a drink and it was all salt water from mid-river. Probably full of all the irons and mercury known to man and poisons. So I was shoveling in one hand and throwing over my shoulder, throwing up over my shoulder in the other hand.
Wow.
Anyway, I worked my way through it and moved on from there. And we had actually 7 men killed in that job.
Wow.
I suppose nowadays the directors would be in prison for that.
Yeah.
But in those days, you just went in and got on with it. I remember one morning I went in, 3 lads had been killed on the Sunday night. They were doing a little cross-cut from the pilot tunnel so the TBM could bore into it. And that's where they changed the cutters then. And it was down around the mid-river area, it was very wet. The guys had come in, 4-man crew, 3 started drilling, 1 went back out for the oilskins again. When he came in, the slab was down and the lads were lying dead underneath it. So the following morning I went to work and it was me and this guy, John Brennan. We were stripping out the steel out of the pilot tunnel. just ahead of the TBM, like, and the police tape was across there, and John was talking in a whisper, like, I said, why are you whispering, John? He said, well, the lads are dead there, like, right beside us, but probably 5 meters away, yeah.
Wow.
So that's how it was then. No counselling then. You just went home, had to think about it, got up in the morning, went back to work again, yeah.
Wow.
Travelled on then, went down to the south of England, down to Bristol. First road header we ever had in maybe the first or the second we ever had in civil engineering tunneling, yeah. I believe it was the second one. It was struggling because it was a small coal machine and then hard rock. Probably changed it 300 or 400 picks a shift. But anyway, we worked our way through that. And gradually, people started taking a keen eye on me, and they started moving up the tree, leading miner, pit boss, and met a lot of good people in the way. When you meet good people, you do good work for them. When you meet a bad boss, you can't do enough for him, but because they're always complaining and whinging at you. But when you meet a real good one, he takes care of you, like, so that's where I am today, through a lot of good people, like. Gradually worked my way on along. Into hydro projects. I've been to the Norwich Power Station, probably the biggest underground one in Europe at that time. Massive machine hall in there. I think it was 56 meters from the roof to the bottom of the sump in the height, yeah. A good friend there, we rented a house together. We'd travel, we'd work together a few times, and good mate, best mate actually. He got killed in the transformer hole. Rock slipped off one end of his shoulder and took him out. So it's a good project, but then you get these little things in it, well, big things actually, that give it a little bit of a bad taste, So gradually from there, I went into other smaller TBM works, sewage tunnels, a lot of hand tunneling, and eventually I ended up down in Fiji, which was an interesting job. That's where I came across a lot of your countrymen and your Australian lads. I was working for a company called Kier, and we were in partnership with Downer. Met men like Jock Smith, who came in later in life when Downers took it over, took over the partnership, to the overall upper hand in it. Jock and Nui, great people. Pub Techie, with many a Sunday afternoon, Techie on the guitar singing to us. We had Manu, Don Stewart, Don I think was the agent. Too many to mention, like, Harry Reader, Fitter, there was a character. From there I moved on back to the UK and later on to Singapore. Singapore was a good job as work goes, but it was a bad job for me because when I was there I lost my 14-month son back in the UK. But guess carry on back from Singapore back into UK again, and it's a drill and blast here and there. Well, quite big road tunnels actually. Work for cementation, work for Balfour PT. Met some good characters there. Some of the lads I've been around with are still with me to this day, like Scott Heatley, Scotty, and Bill Joblin. This is a UK branch of people. Yeah, all great characters, like, and we don't seem to have these anymore. And that's such a shame, like, Then I eventually went down to Sydney. I got a call to go down to Sydney, and that's where I met the likes of Phil Aitken. And I was kind of lucky there, because coming into Australia as a palmer, whatever you want to call us, he had a bit of a cold shoulder, but because I knew a lot of these people previously or had met them, they accepted me and they looked after me and were good to me. And Phil was good. He showed me the rounds, and I was lucky enough to take his brother Mark was one of my pit bosses. Mark's gone now. God rest him, but lovely man, very quiet. Yeah, a lot of the generation I met down in Sydney, they were like the son-in-laws and sons of the ones I'd met back in Fiji in those days. Another old character I'd met in Fiji was Joss Lapsley. Probably hear them talking about him. I met his grandsons down in Sydney. So there we go. Generations just keep on moving along, like, you know. Yeah, I came from Australia. I went to, I think where I went then. I'd done a couple of jobs in Australia. I done Sydney and Melbourne. Then I went out to West Africa. That was a big mine project. It was quite interesting how I came across it. I was asked by John Holland to go down over to Perth, like, and get set up for the Perth job. But I was in a bar and I went for a smoke, and I was out in the beer garden and I couldn't see anybody smoking, and I thought, oops, that's messed up here. I must be in the wrong place. And I saw this little nuggety shaving headed guy stood in the middle of the yard smoking a cigar. I thought, that's okay, I'll go over and see him. So I went over, lit my fag up, we had a bit of a chat. And I thought he was actually Irish, but he was Canadian. And just a small chit chat, what are you doing here? And I said I was looking at a new project, and he said he was talking with Rio Tinto. He said he'd done conveyancing. So I had this picture in my mind, you know, with some mine somewhere and overland conveyors. So he started telling me about this job in West Africa. Had a few problems, so straight away I started thinking quick, and I thought, West Africa, yeah, have a few mountains there. Probably wants a few tunnels driven through them for the rail line, for the conveyors or whatever. So I just dropped one in, and he looked at me all surprised. He said, yeah, I've got 3 mountains, 42 kilometres of tunnel. So I sprung into action and asked him what he wanted, hard rock, drill and blast, EPB, or what sort of machines. Did he need the full gangs? And he said, I think we'd better go and have a beer. So we went and had a beer, and we had a couple of whiskies. We parted the company. I gave him my business card, and probably 2 or 3 weeks later, I arrived back in Melbourne. I'd just done a trip to the UK and my phone was going mental. I stepped off a plane, calling me from Houston, Texas. She wanted a job, like. So I ended up in West Africa, construction manager looking after the tunnels, which never eventuated because the government wouldn't hold elections, so they couldn't get the money. Anyway, we done 16 or 18 months there. Very interesting times. Jumping in helicopters, climbing into the bush, taking drill rigs all over the place for the Chinese. And we got the COVID-19 here now. Well, over there we're battling through cholera and yellow fever and very dangerous type of malaria. And one village, you remember, there was 162 people died out of 402 with cholera. They had to pacify the Chinese who were drawing the water of the rivers for the drilling. So the villagers were bathing the bodies just upstream of them, so I had to go and pacify the Chinese and get them back to work with throwing a few litres of bleach into the water, into the drill tanks, show them how to do a bit of hygiene and keep clean and healthy. Yeah, from there I moved on to Hong Kong, doing a blast job with Kiers again, and Lang O'Rourke UK company, and Caden, which I believe is kind of part of the world. Done a lot of good work there. Met Landis on the train there a few times in the morning. Met a few of the lads there, mainly on trains or in around the bars. I'd be trolling the bars for beer. Moved on then from there directly to go to Kuala Lumpur, where initially in the box I was in, we had 4 TBMs, 2 EPBs going out of one end, and 2 variable density slurry machines going out of the other end. And the interim was waiting for another tunnel manager to arrive, so we're setting up another site up the road for another 2 TBMs, so 6 in total. Interesting times, busy times, hot, sweaty, sticky, but very good, interesting. Then I realised my mother wasn't getting any younger. She's 86 now, living on her own, so I decided it was time really to move back to the UK, see if I could look after her a bit better. And once we got her sorted out, we ever will, because she's very independent, but we're trying. I decided I still had a bit to offer, so this little company, I opened up and doing a bit of work for Belfast. That's pretty much it now.
Wow.
So feel free to ask me anything you want.
Oh, mate, I'm stoked to hear all that, and especially, there is tunnel jobs that do jump out at me. So probably a question from me was, your first day, and like you explained, you're walking around for 7 days. So where are you originally from? Where'd you walk? Where'd you come from to end up at Mersey Road Tunnel, England?
No, I came from Northern Ireland originally. I ended up down in Bristol in England, in the southwest, pretty close to where I am now, actually. And I was doing a bit of labouring on building sites. And this couple came in. He was a paint inspector, and he was down doing a course. So he said, you should come back up north, and stay with us, and we'll get you a job. I've done one tunnel in the Mersey, and we're just about to start the second one with twin children. They're looking for people. So off I went, but actually what happened was the group went through, so there's that lull. There's not much happening, and didn't really need anyone. So I spent weeks walking streets, and looking back, I was pretty stressed.
Was that quite common though, Vic? Back in those days, was it quite common? You just go and walk around the streets. Obviously nowadays with technology, you send your bloody CV to about 1,000 people just with one push of a button. So you were walking continuously every day looking for work, eh?
Yeah, you didn't. There was no CVs to send in those days. And you either knew someone in the game. But I was 18 years old, so I didn't know one. I remember one day I met a guy, I was really desperate. And he said, look, you see a way up in the horizon? See those trees? I said, yeah. And it was bloody miles away. He said, that's a place called Arab Park. They're building a hospital. So off I trundled. I walked all the way to Arab Park. It must have taken me about 3 hours. I got up there, and all there was the surveyor setting pegs to the ground. There was no builder on, no cover off. So I turned around and walked all the way back again. Probably hoofed it that day for about 8 hours. But all character building.
Yes. Oh, wow. So your first day, you said you started on the night shift, and then that was a pretty full-on welcome to tunnelling, I suppose. But that was how it was back then. I did notice you hung around England quite a bit because you had continuous work right up to 1975, where that was the year I was born. So here you are working on the Channel Tunnel, the Cross Channel Tunnel. Do you mind letting us know a little bit about that? What was it like?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's just prior to that, the road editors started coming in from the coal mines into the tunnelling game, yeah, with these machines called DOSCOs. Obviously not the Sandvik machines or whatever we have nowadays, So done one little job, like I said, and then I moved to across the city. another Malago interceptor, they called it. It was basically to hold all the storm water when it came. And it all went to the river, so we would hold underground, and then when the tide was a tidal river, when the tide went out, the flap on the side of the tunnel port would open with the water pressure, and the tunnels would just drain out, So we've done quite a few tunnels over there, and then the Channel Tunnel started up, and we went down there to do we call the adits. It's basically the tunnels that get you down into where you're going to build the machines and do your conveying from. So went down there using the same machines. Great tunneling medium, it was like a clay and a chalk mix. Absolutely brilliant. We're doing a 1-6 drift, it's a pretty steep old drift. And down there we do six settings. Shift, meter centre, all colliery arches, timber laggings to your top heading and a bench, and conveyor belt and the muck out. All good stuff, yeah. And so that was got all those done, and then we brought in the TBM. And I had got me and my friend, the one who got to explain, got killed in the fire station. We went up to a place just outside London. On the way home one night, we had to go in. That's where they're actually building the TBM. I went in and they had a dummy tunnel set up, so we built the first wing in this tunnel to see how the rector would work. And there's a company called Nuttall's. Nuttall were really, really innovative company. They were all for mechanized tunneling, and with a great, we call them Black Gang, the leader, the mechanical superintendent, absolutely brilliant old fellow, bad-tempered as hell, but knew his stuff, and whenever he gave you something, it was going to work, and they really made some good stuff, and I worked with them throughout the years. Shaft sinking, we had frames made up, and go down the shaft, the JCB back, go on, perp backs to the top for mucking the shaft. It was absolutely brilliant, So, then the TBM, we got it all together, fired it up, getting the backup in piece by piece. Really loved it. You're young, you're wild, a lot of young men around you, a few older hands, were ready to crack on and going, and then the government came along and stopped the project. So all a bit down in the mouth of that one, So we parked the machine up, made it all safe, got laid off and moved on elsewhere.
Yeah. So can I just ask, because you talk about hand tunnelling and then you talked about just then the mechanisation, was that a new thing? So we're talking 45 years ago. So prior to that, you were in the game 6 years before you went to the Channel Tunnel. So handheld or hand tunnelling, can you explain what that is, Vic, please?
Yeah, well, in those days, we didn't really have the drill rigs we have nowadays. So we'd have shields. It's basically tin can with big shields with compartments in them where you could get your jack legs up there, air legs, and every man had his own compartment would drill out, or it wasn't hard rock, but it would be jack picks with clay spades on them, and you'd be jack picking around out, shove the shields forward, and build a ring either with according to the diameter, you either build it by hand with small diameter, or you would use a pretty basic erector, winches, pulley blocks, a thing called a roller boat, which was half the width of the ring and would bolt onto the pulley on the shaft, and it would bolt onto the bolt on the previous ring, and you work your wire rope in such a way that it would go around this pulley and it would pull your segments into place for you. All the lower segments, the top one, you still had to build by hand, And some of these things were some of these segments are up to 250 kg, so pretty brutal work,
So it's like having formwork set up for you guys to manhandle, obviously the drilling side of it. So you're when you say jack legs, they're air legs. So it's a drilling tool, and if the ground was soft, you just pick it out with a pick and a shovel. Once you advance forward or excavate forward, you would put these segments up by hand on that platform as well, and that platform would move as you go.
That's correct, mate. And going back to my first job, like, I was like the offside or the nipper, whatever you want to call them, down in your part of the world. I was a miner's mate, miner's labour. So my job would be to set up all the air legs, have the oil bottles for the turtles all filled ready for them. New drill rods in, the drill rods would be all integral bits, wouldn't be knock-ons or screw-ons, and they're integral on steel. So I had the sharp ones in there, and they bring in the powder and making up the primers, and then spannering the face for them, holding the drill rods to get the rod on the face, and stripping the machines back, filling the bottles again, rolling all the hoses up, changing over the drill rods, bringing in an air lamp in those days. It was a lamp with which you hooked the air hose on. It generated a light. It was to keep the electricity down for safe charging of the face. I would take the string of lights out. The guys would go charging. I would help them. Then after the blast out of the first, everybody would be chased in there again. Water down the muck, kill the dust. Put the string of lights up again. And get ready for the slingshot to come and start mucking.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible, eh? I remember Dad talking about, they called them jumbos, and it was a platform set up to what you're talking about. And I remember, because he was, I think, he's 6'3", 6'4", but he was told, his first spot on that platform was on the top because he was tall and he could reach the top holes when they drilled out.
Yeah.
He also told me his boss used to have a big long stick, and if he heard your machine stop, you got to poke with the stick.
yeah, that would be the stemming rod.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, wow. Well, that's incredible. So, and then mechanised was a TVM. Wow, how things have changed. That's incredible. So, from that channel tunnel, like, I only wrote down a few that I wanted to talk to you about, and obviously it was that channel tunnel. You did work overseas too. Well, actually, the first job I wanted to talk to you about. So you're an Irishman working in England, but then you went to Wales. Bloody hell! How'd you get on there?
A bit strange that one was. I went up. I travelled up with the general foreman, we travelled up this Sunday night shift, and it was probably about a 4-hour trip from where we stayed. I went up over this mountain path. The clouds was down, and the rain was howling in, and the wind was howling. And I thought, Jesus Christ, where are we going here? And we drove over the other side of the pass and arrived in this village. And the first shock was it was a Sunday night, so the bars weren't open. Because of the church had the rule over which bars open, and there was no Sunday drinking in that part of the world, yeah. So checked into the digs, and then the landlord, lovely man, I'm working with his son now actually, he said, Vic, if you go over to the Castle Hotel, knock on the window, they'll let you in. Yeah. So I told him off, knocks on the door, gets in, and then they're all speaking a language I don't understand. They're all speaking Welsh. And so, good God. And there's men in there, with Tisson's UK, there was thinking shafts, tunnelers from all around Britain in there. They're all drunk, and it was a bit of it was like something like a Wild West saloon, actually, yeah. And probably about midnight, two of them would end up underneath the old oak tree outside, knocking 7 lumps of shit out of each other, and dragging them back in again, getting cleaned up, and we were the best friends for the rest of life after that.
Wow.
Really experience.
That's great. So then also I wanted to talk about this Fiji job because, like you said, you mentioned the Kiwis that you met there and their sons like Landis, who I've just finished working with on a project in Sydney. But that generation coming in. But I remember seeing photos, and my grandfather was around in those days in that generation too, that worked on over in Papua New Guinea with a lot of the guys that were in these photos. So like the Harry Reiders and all them too. So that was good, his good mates. But that Fiji job, what's your take on that? Because you've got you drill and blast with air legging, but then you had the Amco loader shovel, which I've heard Dad talk about an Amco loader. So what can you explain what they are?
Yeah, they're basically what I said before, called slingshot. And we always call them the slingshot, but sometimes they call them the widowmaker as well. It's an air-driven tool, and you mucking machine like a front end loader, but it runs either on rails or it runs on tracks, like a track excavator. You stand on the side, the bucket goes from the front right over past your nose and tips in the skip behind you. There's various models of them. There's 612Bs, 621s, they're rail mounted. And 622 is the one, like a track excavator one. And then we had a 622, and I actually blew it up in Fiji. So down was brought in the 740, which was a beast I'd never seen before, and it was absolutely fantastic. It had a conveyor belt on the back. You didn't have to use your body to make it. It ran on rails, and you didn't have to use your body to slew it. You had to use your body weight to slew around on the track. This one, you pushed the travel lever laterally, and it moved it left or right. And you could actually probably keep half a skip on the belt while changing skips right behind you. It was a fantastic machine, and we done real fast tunneling with that thing.
Nah, they're a great piece of gear. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So now they've got, cat loaders, 10-ton buckets, conveyors. So yeah, amazing. So let's go on to another project that I was interested in, was the Singapore Metro, because you've got down in OFS shields.
Yeah.
What are they?
OFS is just an open face shield, yeah. So it's a TBM without a cutter head on. And what we had in it was a backhoe excavating the face. And when you would do the excavation, we had things called four poles, which were sliding plates with a cylinder on them on the roof, and they would jack forward to protect the ground that you just excavated. And there'd be face plates which would fold down from them to hold against the face to stop it collapsing. Good idea, in good ground or fairly stable ground, but in Singapore there's quite a variation of geology, anything from granite to marine clays to very loose material, and some nights some ships that became rather busy on it. You'd be screaming for timber, as we call it, with the Thai guys, Mai, and there was half in Mai, and these guys would throw the Mai at me, and I tried to get it in place as quick as I could to choke the face off when it started running at us. I remember one night they had to dig me out with something wasted it. We got it caught. So yeah, it was a good job actually. When it was bad, it was really bad, and when it was good, it was good. It was just tippy tunneling, Yeah. While we were down there was an interesting thing that happened. There was a hotel fell down collapsed, probably about 2 miles per job site, or a mile and a half. It's called the New World Hotel, and it's fallen down, and the home defence, whatever you call them, they've been down rattling around it. And then after a day, there was a guy called Russell. I think it was Russell Black from New Zealand. He was working with a client. He came around the job sites and asked that we'd go down and try and help with the rescue. So we all trundled down. We found this hotel probably about 4 meters high now. And Army was milling around in the civil defence. So they sort of took the back seat, and we started to go see down there in the basements. And we found in the basement, we go down there, the buildings had come down, like from the central floor, had collapsed. It was all like V's, just collapsed down. The first thing we found was an Indian bride at the doorstep. She'd been walking out of the hotel with all her finery on when it came down. She was dead, so we jacked the slabs up and sent her away to run away. She'd been there 2 days at that stage. We went down, we found a guy across a motorbike, ready to take off, killed. Another guy was fixing the exhaust of his car. He just the feet sticking out from underneath it. We eventually took about, I think, 16 or 18 people out alive, and quite a few dead, yeah. But we spent 2 nights in there, and I remember the following morning, that was the 16th of March, we were in there. The following day was St. Patrick's Day. It was me and this Jimmy Brennan. Jimmy passed a couple of years ago. But Jimmy and I came out in the morning, and there was an Indian set up. I was down in a place called Little India. I don't know if you know Singapore anyway well.
No, I've never been there.
Yeah, anyway, Indian guy, he waved me in on the way up because he could see we're all covered in fucking blood. Started to pump up and pump the water, and I got a bit of a wash. Went back up to the job site. We got changed. It was now St. Patrick's Day, so Jimmy said, I think I need a drink. I said, so do I. So we buggered off. He had a litre of rum and I had a litre of gin. And you know what? We both went home as sober as we walked in there. And then the next night we went in work and said, we'll go back down again. So we spent the second night down there. So, yeah, it was an interesting time, and it was a bit character building. The only thing that kept me going at that stage was wondering, how did they manage in Mexico when there was hundreds of buildings collapsed and this was only one, But yeah, it was people of Singapore have never forgot that honour, that gesture that the tunnellers made for them. The Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, at that time, he awarded us with public service medals, and a couple of lads got really high awards, for the bravery. We didn't want anything, we just wanted to help people, but basically we had to take them. And I was back there a couple of years ago. I asked the taxi driver to take me around where the scene was. A new hotel built. Just told him what I was looking for, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And after all those years, he was still thanking you, it was really nice, lovely people.
Wow, mate, that's amazing. No, good on you. Far out. Yeah.